podcast. Today's amazing guests were ranked number 41 in the small group real estate teams for the Jacksonville Business Journal for 2024. They are a husband and wife team that calls Fernandina Beach their home. Month after month, they continue to post amazing sales numbers. You need to visit their well put together Instagram and YouTube pages. Let's find out what's making this husband and wife team so successful. Let's welcome Jordan and Jacqueline Gallup of Ingle and Volker's First Coast to the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're excited.
Well, I appreciate you making a little trip down here this morning. Hopefully traffic wasn't too bad.
No.
With school out, it's okay. The 95 can be hectic. Let's put it that way.
And we do this drive a lot. So our kids play soccer in Jacksonville. So
Well, it was great to see you guys at the Armada game.
Yes.
And that's why I realized you guys were soccer. I just don't have the patience for it. After halftime and being in the heat, I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah, so it wasn't a sport that either of us played growing up,
Right.
but our kids kind of got involved. Started coaching because the other coach's kid quit and went on YouTube and was like, how do I be a youth soccer coach?
Yeah.
And then, so we've got two at Jacksonville Football Club, JFC here, and then one who's in the rec at Amelia Island still.
You know, we were talking pre-show about videos and stuff. That's one thing, and I've thought about it as well. My son's more involved in basketball and stuff, which my wife loves because she can sit in the air conditioning. But doing videos on that stuff, because I think obviously a lot of parents, families moving down, they're looking, what are the, sports are different here than when I grew up in Massachusetts in the little townships. We had recreation. The town basically subsidized the Little League baseball and stuff like that. And of course it was more seasonal. Here the kids are playing year round and understanding that these activities are going pretty much 11 months of the year. They take kind of a little bit of a Christmas break or more or less all the time, but that would be a great video on that.
Good point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And too, like I said, when I first was like, oh, how do I coach youth soccer? I was like, YouTube was the first, the first place I went to try to look up some ideas.
YouTube is amazing. But I want to kick off. You guys met in college.
We did.
Are you both? Did you go to high school together? Or no, different places.
I'm from Seattle.
Seattle. Oh, okay.
And then Chicago.
So.
Yeah, and we actually met on the dating game show, like the 1970s.
Yeah.
Our college had a
full
local station,
reenactment. Yes,
and that was her background was television, and she was the host, and they asked me to be one of the three contestants, trying to win over a date with this girl behind the wall.
But you end up with the host.
I did, and
he asked me
before the show
TV.
started, I was like, I don't know who's back there, but I'd rather
her.
just take you on a date instead. So.
But it is kind of funny to have him asking me out. We have it on a DVD now, but it's funny to have that footage, that kind of just lives on, I guess.
It just reminds me of my wife and I got married on the beach in Miami, and most of our guests were older. So what we did a 3-day cruise instead of a normal reception type thing. We just went there right to the port of Miami, did a 3-day thing, and that evening we got on the ship. It was a Friday. We get on the ship and we were on. The ships do the little like dating game. They get somebody who's newlyweds versus someone who's been married for 40, 50 years. Yeah, this is making me.
It's a fun game.
So, what brings you? Because where is Olivet Nazarene University?
So it's an hour south of Chicago.
Okay.
It's a great liberal arts school. We had, the best experience there. We both played college sports, which I feel like has equipped us more professionally for anything else that we've done, because it's that drive, that hustle.
College sports, it's, we were just talking about here in Florida being, any of the sports, you're playing 11 months of the year, pretty much, with the exception of the holidays. And in college sports, these kids have to, you are going from early in the morning into the evening, whether you're in a video session or you're working, lifting weights, and then obviously practicing your sport.
I mean, it truly is a full-time job. If you're playing college sports, that's it. It's that classes. It takes your weekends. You're on campus before anyone else is. You know what I mean? And you're still there after everybody's left at the end of the year. And Jordan and I just talk about all the time, especially raising 3 girls that are in that sports world now, that, that hustle and just that grit of like, well, I'm going to outwork you.
Right.
Well, there's one thing I've noticed. My son being in basketball, now he's 14 and going into high school. They start to differentiate themselves with the other kids by having some of that grit. I immediately attributed those. Oh, it's great if you have an older brother or older sister, like you're competing, but it's not always that.
Right.
Some of them just their competitiveness is not there. And if you have kids that are competitive, that want to win, that will, dive after the loose ball and, run as fast as they can from one place to another. And just because they just mentally, it's not that the other kids can't run as fast. It's just that it mentally doesn't click with them to exert themselves.
Right.
And have that grit that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I've even seen with baseball, we grew up in a small town, south of Chicago, and it's weird now too because we're kind of traveling all over Florida for soccer, but we never had to go more than 30 minutes. But we played with some great baseball players, first round draft picks. We won state when I was a junior in high school.
That's cool.
And but seeing some of these kids, they had so much talent early on, and then I went to college and played with Ben Zobrist, and he was the Cubs MVP World Series, and he just worked so much harder than those guys, and he didn't have as much talent as some of the first round draft picks, and a lot of them never made it to the big leagues, and just kind of seeing how hard he worked and how much he was in the gym and in the batting cages, and you kind of see that with real estate too, like the people who learn how to work and don't just these deals were kind of handed to me, it's going to be easy. The ones that show up every day, we've kind of seen over the last almost 10 years that we've been doing this, those are the ones that seem to really do well long term.
But these are important life lessons, and you just made a point that's passionate with me with the kids is overcoming some adversity sometime in your life, and being athletes yourself. You've been out there. Well, not the heat like these guys are playing. Your kids are playing, and you get a little thirsty, a little hot and sweaty, and some of these kids are afraid to sweat.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, how do you even survive in Florida without doing that, let alone play a sport?
Right. You're playing through injury, like I remember playing basketball games and having the flu and being so sick, at halftime, but going out because there's people counting on me and I had to show up.
Yeah. I don't know about playing with the flu.
I know. That probably wasn't
that's
my
unrecognized
best moment, but that did happen.
But that's great. Yeah. How do you see some of these professional athletes? How do they do it? I think Michael Jordan. I just think of others that at different times have had where they've got to go out at key moments because one, there's a lot of money involved, but there's a lot of fans. There's just all these people depending on it, and that's true grit to go out and work through a boo-boo.
Right.
The kid falls down. Get up and walk it off.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go. Your leg's not broken. I don't see any blood. All right. So one of the questions is how did you meet? So we met on the dating show.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, both of you got involved in media. Were both of you studying that in school? What was your career vision?
So mine was television, video productions. And then he was
marketing with a communication background, but still didn't know.
A lot of overlap here.
Yes.
Yeah, and still didn't know, where, what I wanted to do. But I knew, kind of in college, I would work odd jobs in the summer, and one of them was at a factory. And, you'd see these people every day doing the same thing. It was in, we'd moved to Michigan when I was a junior in high school. And so, every day they would just do the same thing. I was like, okay, I know I don't want to do something that's exactly the same every day. So
you wanted every day to look a little different.
Yeah. So we started working at a television company, and she had graduated and moved to Naples, Florida, and then we had gotten engaged, and I was looking for jobs in Naples, and they said, well, actually, we want to move her position to, we're going to do a Tennessee office in Chattanooga. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm looking for jobs in Chattanooga. And they're like, but we do need a sales and marketing person as well. So we ended up working together at a national television station.
Are we married yet at this
yes.
time?
Yeah, we got married.
You already got married.
In 2007.
Okay.
Yep. And then, lived in Tennessee till 2015. But we'd kind of done a lot. It was a small television station, but we were in 14 million homes through Dish Network with three networks, and we had made some connections, and that's kind of how we stumbled on Amelia Island, was through a connection. We had bought a radio station in Kingsland, Georgia, and that was in 2012. And for 3 years, would just go from Kingsland to Chattanooga, back and forth every few months. And one time we had our girls. I think we went to Disney, and we're like, well, let's visit the radio station. I was like, I think there's a beach town somewhere close to Kingsland, because there's no beach in Kingsland and St. Mary's, and it was like either St. Simon's and Jekyll or Amelia Island. We're like, let's go visit Amelia Island, and we fell in love with the town, the downtown area, the beaches, and I quit my job like a week later and started flipping houses.
So at the media, so were your positions doing it? Were you working a lot together, overlapping, or kind of?
A little bit. So I worked on the licensing side. So I was acquiring networks and then content for like video on demand. So that was a great opportunity for me, just especially for contract negotiations, like working with these big players like NBC,
NFL Network, Discovery,
and Disney. Allowed me to learn that back and forth and that licensing and what do you have that I want and what do I have that you want.
Some negotiation.
Yeah, which has worked so well, I feel like, in real estate now too.
Right. And then I did a lot of sales, and it would be, we'd be selling like 30-minute blocks but a lot of it was just building relationships over time with these companies. And, we'd take them out to dinners and to NFL football games. But yeah, it was less about selling, and it was more about building.
All the relationship.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Which relates to what you're doing now.
It does, yeah.
So when you get started in 2015, what gives you the taste into real estate? Where do you get introduced here?
So we had the radio station in Kingsland, and we knew we wanted to kind of move to Florida. And it wasn't doing much hands-on stuff at the radio station. It was more just kind of investment. We had looked into flipping it quickly, but we ended up kind of staying, and the business partner we had at the time moved to St. Mary's. And I just contacted one of the local banks and said, can I have your foreclosure list? And, they gave me about 60 properties back then. And, and so I was like, okay, I'll start with this one, and just this kind of needs some cosmetic finishing, and flipped it. And kind of when it was in the process of selling, I thought, okay, we've got like 30 days to close, and I can't do anything else, and so I was like, maybe I'll just get my real estate license. That way, I'll have access to the MLS. If I want to list, I can do it myself. And then I took like a week-long course here at the Watson thing down, and was like, oh, I actually like this a little bit better. So I still flipped a few more houses, but I was like, instead of pulling up urine stained carpets and all this stuff, I was like, I actually like the real estate side better. So I haven't flipped a house, and I mean, thank goodness too, because back then they gave me a huge list, and now there's
how does that experience, because I think having your 204th episode, 190 of the top agents, not every one of them has gone out and bought their own investment properties. A lot of them have. Flipping is another category, because there's so many, real estate can be done in so many different ways, but having that experience and talking, because I imagine you get customers who are interested in doing that type of thing, to be able to actually have a conversation with them.
Yeah, exactly. And then through that too, I've been able to kind of even price to some degree. You can get all sorts of different finishes, but kind of like, hey, that's going to be, that's going to put you way too high and over budget. But if you're looking to just do these things, that would make a good investment. Return. And even I guess it was last year we saw a deal, and it was somebody trying to sell a for sale by owner condo, and we had some friends that were kind of looking, but they were looking in another. They live here, but they were looking in another part of Georgia, close to Atlanta, by Lake Sinclair, at an investment property. And she was like, should I reach out to
I
him?
just felt like I've got to send them this.
It's
This is
too
such
good of a deal.
good opportunity.
Right.
And-
Like, I know it was listed that day. It was like, this thing's going to go under contract today. Like,
And she's
someone's
an
gonna
interior
see it.
designer. We're like, we know that they could do this. And so we sent it to them. They bought it for $740,000. And then in January, we sold it for $1 million for them.
Nice.
And they, put
Yeah.
50,000 into it. So we saw that, like, we don't have the time to do this ourselves, but this would be a great quick investment for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just really feel it's important, and I'm sure obviously you guys agree, as agents, as you grow, I think some agents really only look short term. They're not looking long term to gain these type of experiences. Because I've had many times as a lender where agents have called and said, I got someone who wants to buy an investment property. What do I do? They don't know even how to even have a conversation with them because they themselves haven't dabbled in it or took the time to understand the difference of buying an investment property versus, their primary residence,
Right.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, even just the concept that I kind of learned quickly was, like, you make money when you buy it. So kind of as real estate agents, we know, hey, if this is fully done, it's going to comp out at this price. And so kind of the lower you can get it, that's where you really make the money. It's hard to, like, you can't put in nicer countertops and think that you're going to sell it for more. And so that's kind of what we always try to tell people. You make money when you buy it.
I'm going to pause just for a second to give my sponsorship here because before I forget, because I'll get into conversations and I'll forget, but putting my camera here, Remy Graphics here made these nice mugs, which I got in the gift bag that was sitting there. That's actually a gift bag for you guys. There's one of these mugs in there and a nice notebook from the bank. But Remy Graphics, right in Nassau County, and she'll make these one-offs for you. There's laser gifts that she provides, but if you go to remygraphics.com and see all the different things and quick turnaround there for Dunya Taylor, who owns Remy Graphics. So, all right, back to the show. I had on here Sky Angel Networks. We talked a little bit about it, but Jacqueline, you were there longer.
Yes.
But the training. And what did you? Was it being a small shop? Were you given corporate training, or a lot of the stuff that you were doing was kind of hands-on and teaching yourself? Because you got involved in and obviously dealing with these large networks. You're dealing with corporations that definitely are sending their people to some sort of formal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no, I just kind of jumped in.
Yeah.
I listened a lot to, especially there were some wonderful people who'd been in the industry a long time, and again, those relationships, they just kind of took me under their wing. Like Dan Zifkin is one that specifically comes to mind. He's a big player out of the Chicago area, owns a media company, and he took me in like a daughter. Like, I just remember even speaking at some public events, and he's like, I'm picking you up from the airport. I want you, to be in your head before you get up and address these people. And he didn't have to do that. Like, he's so busy. But whenever we were in a city, Miami, Vegas, we always had lunch. And I think I just took the opportunity to learn from these people who've done it and done it well.
Right.
And I think they maybe just liked that I was green and wanted to learn. So it's definitely just hands-on, jump in, sink or swim.
Kind of like real estate.
Yeah, and I swim, and no, it was that season was wonderful. It was a definite season for us. A level of intensity. I tell people when we were like pregnant with our first and our second, I was still working in television. And it was different in the sense, like, when I was very full term, I felt like I could negotiate deals even faster because I was like, hey, I don't know when I'm going to go into labor. But in all seriousness, I was negotiating in the hospital room still. Like, it was just very like, no, we need to finish this, dot the lines, cross the T's. But I loved that. And it's amazing how, like, whatever field you're in, don't be afraid to make changes. Like, there's so much crossover in life, and it is relational. And I think a lot of it is just like the hunger to want to learn something new. And then maybe being naive and just thinking you can jump in and do it too, right?
Well, I think one of my things that I cringe about sometimes, talking to people, like if they're looking to make a change, I got to go back to school. well, school doesn't really teach you the things that you learned. It matured you a little bit because you spent 4 years there and you grew up
Right.
until you're 20. But unless you're going to actually learn a technical trade or something of actually how to do it, like obviously engineering, you need to to have that kind of thing. What you're talking about is obviously relatable right into the real estate. I mean, having that confidence and seeing what you've done when you decided to go over to real estate, did you guys team up? Did you find a mentor or someone to kind of follow or shadow?
Yeah. So,
Jordan started first.
Yeah. And so I started in Georgia and Florida at the same time. And Georgia, I was just kind of on my own. Started buying Zillow leads back then in 2015, and they were much cheaper back then. But I didn't know anybody and felt like I have to do something to create this. And that seemed to really help the first year. And then I joined a team in Florida, and they were the #1 team, Team Whirling with Berkshire Hathaway in Nassau County. And that really helped. It gave me the confidence. I could go into listing presentations with the team members and not feel like oh, I don't really have that many sales, or I haven't really sold that many listings, because hey, I'm with the team that does more sales than anybody in the county, and that seemed to really help give me the confidence, and just kind of shadowing them and going into the office every day and just listening and hearing the successes and then hearing the failures and learning from them was big.
Did you look for that, or did you kind of just through just some trial and error, meaning people just kind of fell into that situation?
I did kind of stumble onto the team. So my Georgia broker, I was like, so I got licensed in Georgia. I was living there because I was flipping a house, and then I got the classes in Florida. So technically I had a Florida license. It was reciprocal because I lived in Georgia. And I was like, well, since I have a license in Florida, I asked the broker up there, who should I hang my license with? And he was like, well, I always refer them, to Team Whirling. And he's like, let me connect you. And then we bought a foreclosure on Amelia Island to flip, but ended up living there 4 years because we loved the area.
On the beach, we couldn't say no.
So ended up like, okay, well, this was a good move because now we're living in Florida full time, and the office was 2 minutes away from our house.
I imagine you guys, especially as young people, you've been asked numerous times about real estate. Should I get involved? If you were had a friend of yours, whether they were here locally or across the state, wherever they were, and they said, I want to get into real estate, what would you recommend I do? What are a couple things based on your experience that you would recommend that I would do A, B, and C?
Yeah, if I was starting today or just into it, I would probably join a team, especially with all the changes coming. I think that would really help them to learn, and then just to have somebody kind of along with them, teaching them. And then the second thing I would say is just video and social media. And that's I think that'd be huge for.
Well, I haven't mentioned it recently, but I mean, Stevie Hahn will tell you, and I had her on very early. Was almost good 2.5 years ago. She said when she got started, that was what she was doing, was a social media, and she hadn't even sold a house yet. But her friends were like, "Hey, you must be killing it," because she was going out and doing open houses and going out and showing herself in front of houses, and this is what she does.
It really does help everybody local, and then people who aren't local see you, if they're looking to move there, and then they start to get to know your personality and see if I think they would be able to help me. They seem like they have a lot of the same, values and ideals, and just we'd be easy to work with, and honestly, like the clients we've had through social media have been
amazing.
Yeah, they've been awesome, and they want to work with you.
And that first meeting doesn't have any sort of like awkward exchange. Like they feel like they already know us before we ever sit down and have a conversation. They know our family. They know we have 3 kids. They know we're a husband and wife team. In fact, they usually spot us if it's in a public place because they've seen us.
Yeah, well, you guys recognized me at the
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It kind of makes the world just a little bit smaller.
Yeah, and it's easier too when you're meeting them at a coffee shop, and a guy a few weeks ago was like, "I'll be in a blue shirt and a baseball hat." I'm like, "Hey, Steve." No. And then next guy, like, okay, there's been 3 people with a blue shirt, and then the guy walks in, he's like, "Jordan." And I'm like, there we go.
Yeah.
Should have just waited. So.
Well, I've said this numerous times, and we were talking pre-show. I just don't. I know there's people that are bashful to the video camera, and then a lot of people come on the show, they're a little bashful because we're streaming, but the reality is the cameras are set up here, but we're talking and we're not even realizing the cameras are rolling.
Exactly. We're just having a conversation. Yeah.
And the other thing, I think, Mr. Beast, right, the big YouTuber, he says, shoot 100 videos, then go back and don't worry about the people who know and love you know your quirks and how you smile or how you stutter or whatever, on different words or mispronounce words or whatever, you just got to just do it.
Well, it probably makes you more approachable too. Like whenever we do any of our bloopers, people think it's hilarious, like we mess up a lot. So.
And it just gets easier. It gets easier and easier. I heard a guy talking, and he was saying that there was a college class, and they were making clay pots, and he told half the class, okay, for the end of the semester, you need to do all your research, make the perfect clay pot, and that's what you're going to be judged on. And he told the other half of the class, like, okay, your goal is to make as many clay pots as you possibly can, and you're going to be graded on how many clay pots you make. By the end of the semester, the group that made more clay pots made better ones at the end than the group that studied and studied and studied and just waited till the end to do it.
That's exactly it. I mean, you have to start the journey somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go back and listen to my initial episodes, the stuttering, because oftentimes I'm engaging and I have questions, but I listen to what you guys are saying and then come back at you, and I'll pause and stutter long because I'm thinking in my head. And if you listen to yourself, then you start to pick up and understand, and you get better in the next one.
Right.
Yeah. But I think people the other thing is your mind does not differentiate the video versus being face to face. When you're looking in that screen, you're building a relationship.
Right.
Like I said, they think they already know you before they come on. Let's talk about the first couple of years. She's not involved yet, right?
Right.
I mean, you were lucky to come on the team, but did things come easy for you? Or, I mean, what would you grade yourself as a real estate agent those first couple of years?
Yeah, no, they didn't come easy. I think the first year and almost all of it was from Zillow. I think I did like 12 deals, and and some of those were, like one was a $42,000 house, like a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, kind of small house.
Callahan somewhere?
It was in Georgia, but and it didn't.
Of course, if it was in Callahan today, it's probably worth $200,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But luckily I was still flipping a couple houses there, so that did kind of help supplement. But yeah, it took time. And like I said, we didn't know anybody except we had that business partner, but he'd already purchased a home before we got there. Like we didn't know anybody. We just had to, kind of do it ourselves.
But you didn't have an option to fail.
Right.
Like he had left his TV job and was doing this full time, and so it wasn't like I'm going to keep, this on the side and dabble in real estate.
So how did you feel about this? You had your corporate salary coming in. What
benefits?
He's over here tinkling around and some flips and stuff. What was going through your mind at this time? 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, I think it was exciting. It was there was definitely a hard season. At first, he came to Florida, and I kept our steady in TV with our girls, and he was coming back and forth. But we were like, if we're gonna make this work, like we have to try. Like now's the time to do it.
So you were bought in to this. This wasn't some
She was.
grandiose idea that he had. And he's like, okay, he's a young man. Let him go off and do his thing.
No, I think we are just like entrepreneurial minded.
Right.
And
Her parents own a business in Seattle, so she kind of knew that there can be ups and downs, and
sometimes it takes some time to get off the ground.
Yeah. And so I was fortunate to have that at first when we were starting, just to have some sort of stability. But then I quickly left that and we jumped all in.
So what triggers Jacqueline's move from corporate America to join him in real estate?
So initially it was my littles. So what I loved about all the travel and rush, and I was traveling quite a bit, wasn't bringing me the same amount of joy when I was realizing I wasn't seeing those first steps anymore. So it was mainly that it was like, wait a minute, and I loved that season. I just have a heart I want to love and support my kids, but I also want a professional outlet. I can't be a stay-at-home mom. I support and love those stay-at-home moms. That's a serious calling. But so that was kind of the shift, I think, for me, was missing too much.
Right.
And this is allowed, with us partnering together, Jordan was like, I need help to really grow this. Will you come on? And I was like, yeah, like I'll do this. But since we're a team at home and then a team professionally, it's allowed me to be there for our kids, but also help us grow the business to the place we want it to be.
So your business started to ramp up a little bit.
It did, yeah.
Now, did you reach a point, where she just mentioned that you needed help? Reach a point where you felt like, I'm full. I can't go on any more appointments. I can't, look up comp, all the things that a real estate agent does behind the scenes,
right?
Let alone in front of the scene,
right?
Were you hitting that lid?
Yeah, and so it was kind of like, I either need to, go out and find another person to partner with, but every day I would come home and she was like, oh, how's your day? And we'd always talk. And so I was like, you know it better than anybody. I'm like, why don't you go get your real estate license?
Right.
And we just do this together. You can take some things off my plate. And then, but yeah, just having her is really, I feel like it's really grown us too, throughout the community, just knowing that both of us are there. So.
And then Ingle and Volker's First Coast too. We have a team there, and then resources that have allowed us to grow at a pace that we were surprised for. And it's because of the support system within the advisors,
the transaction coordinators.
We have a transaction coordinator, which has been
all these people that can help with. And a lot of times I do, the Photoshop, the Canvas, the graphics myself. But now, we have like a marketing request, and I can just send that.
This is my vision. Make it happen.
And then an hour later, I'll get a whole yes, perfect.
But we were doing all of that from scratch on our own for everything we did.
It takes a lot of time.
It's a lot of time, and so we don't take that for granted. That what we have available at EV First Coast is, top notch.
Yeah. So I want to drill a little bit just for the listeners from the standpoint of hitting the lid. This is a common subject we get because I think a lot of agents get to that point, and some of them stop and probably end up retracting because they're afraid to give some of that stuff over to somebody else. So if you didn't have Jacqueline to go to, you would. Either some people think an assistant is actually the first hire, the transaction coordinator, whether or not you're a lot of brokerages don't openly offer that. But I think if you're not tapping into the transaction coordinator that you pay by the transaction, I think is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, though, finding, a lot of people complain they are not happy with that transaction coordinator. But again, if you were advising someone that's, growing their business, that may not be... What would you say to them if they're reaching this point where hey, I'm full, I can't grow my business, I can't take on I'm passing up on customers and giving off to other people because I just can't do it anymore?
I would say transaction coordinator is probably what I really would have started with. And I think too, because you're like constantly, trying to get all these deals done. I feel like you're juggling, and then, you get them and you're like, all right, well, now these are closed. Like I haven't been prospecting and, you know, working
Right.
new
You're up and down.
Yeah. And so now I'm like, okay, take, you know, the transaction coordinator can kind of take those over for you and, you know, and get those, all the paperwork signed and, you know, you're getting emails constantly from the title companies. Like I need this and I need this. And you're missing you know, this signature on this addendum needs to be signed and just being able to kind of know that she's taking that over for us, and getting it done. It's been able to like.
Well, you're probably like me. We know what needs to be done, but we need someone behind us, you know, to poke us. Say, hey, remember today we need this by noontime or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think men are more. we're not detailed oriented. We're not the detail oriented. You know, and we need that. But there's some people that are detail oriented. But the bottom line is, you only have so much time in a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if someone's not, you know, going and doing these, they're not meaningless tasks. They're very important tasks.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're tasks that doesn't need you to necessarily do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the transaction coordinator knew how to do all this stuff. And I was like, I don't want to have to, you know, a kid that just graduated college, like, okay, this is kind of what I need you to do, and teach them the whole thing. And, you know, what if they don't like it after 3 months? And I spent all this time trying to teach them how to send all the paperwork and the files, you know, just kind of being able to pass that off so seamlessly. It felt hard at first, like,
that control,
like, hey,
you know.
And then I was like, okay, it's all getting done. Like, I feel so much lighter.
You know, people talk about doing the contract. It's like, okay, you fill in the blanks of the contract. They send it back to you so you can review it, and then you send it on. Why do you need to spend the 15, 20, I don't know, whatever it takes, a half an hour to fill in a contract after you have make the offer? Yeah. You know, have someone else do that. You check it and then send it on. Your mind, because I think a lot of people underestimate. You know, we look at some of these personal development books, and we hear these, you know, guys like Elon Musk or whatever. You know, they get up at 5 a.m. and they go and meditate, and, you know, then they go work out, and but it's that time that they're meditating or going for a walk or a run. Their mind is, you know, coming up with new ideas, marketing type things, reflecting on all the things they need to do, reflecting on the conversation that they had and then maybe need to have with their next client type of thing. Oh, did I leave something out? You're able to review all this versus if you're one task after another, you don't get the, you know, I forget who said it to me. It's it goes back, but plan, do, and review. Well, a lot of times we don't get the review because we're on to the next task.
Right.
Yeah,
you're right.
And how important that is when you're trying to build relationships.
Right.
Yeah. To be forward. All right. So the dynamic. So you guys worked a little bit in corporate America together, but now she's come over. What do we have roles on this group? Describe this. The Gallup group here. Who does what?
Yeah, so a lot of times we drop the kids off at school. We both go into the office together.
We like to be the first
same
people
car?
to the office.
Are we driving the same car?
A lot of times separate. Because we divide and conquer quite a bit.
And last year we had 3 different schools. So
that was fun.
Yeah. And then
Jordan does a lot of the heavy lifting, and especially like tough conversations. I like being the advocate for like buyers and communicating and meeting with people. But his marketing background really comes full speed, especially with our listings. You know, in that whole process and walking people through what that process looks like.
Yeah. And she's really good at like, hey, you need to do this, and you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, because I just want to be out there.
Who has the 8 o'clock
and
therapy conversation with their buyers or sellers?
Probably Jordan.
Yeah.
But then I'm their cheerleader. I'm like, we've got this. I see you. I hear you. We're on the same team.
10 p.m. on a Saturday
but
night.
He does have the tough love. It's like good cop, bad cop.
Because that was, marketing is always, you touched on it a little bit. Thank God that, you know, Engel Volkers provides some of these people. You guys are doing a lot of it. And you've mentioned, and just looking at your social media, I think you actually say somewhere in some of your bio, you mention his marketing expertise.
Yes.
What is he doing that you feel that you're saying his expertise, something is clicking with him.
Yeah.
In his visions of marketing and so forth. What is it that you're seeing him do that just really is wowing your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, I know he's my husband, but I think he's a creative genius. So he doesn't stay in the lane.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were talking about that creative time, we'll do beach walks even in the morning, and he'll come up with these ideas, and he's like, I think we need to try this. And it's just very outside of the box. It's not a copy paste of someone else's idea.
Right.
And I think it becomes authentic. And so I think he's really good at marketing touches, like through different mediums. But then, you know, just digitally being creative, we're hitting more on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, but video. It's video for us. And even when we use an outside company, he's repurposing content and wanting to push it. You know, we have some customers who aren't as comfortable as others, but usually when people just let go and let us do our thing,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes too, you know, you have these houses, and it's like, okay, this isn't a $10 million mansion, you know, but it's a great home. How do we get engagement? How do we get people to see it? How do we get views? And you know, one time we had our daughter, and she was maybe 5 at the time. We had a little driving car, and had her pull up and you know and be like a tough client, you know, kind of like marching into the house, and you know, and I kind of had that idea like from the movie Elf, when you know, when Peter Dinklage walks in the room, you know, and he's this big you know, book writer, and you know, and you just kind of see his feet walking, and I was like, oh, I want to do that with our daughter. And it's funny because that's like, we've had, you know, it'd be a year later and people are like, oh, that, you know, that video with your daughter was so funny. And that's kind of even what Corey, our broker, said. He's like, yeah, I saw that video, and that's when I knew I needed to reach out to you. So
that's interesting. The in the box person would say on that video, well, did you sell that house?
Yeah.
But really, you may have or may not. But really, that video, because it's we talked about YouTube, and to me, YouTube's a library, and it's got all these books filed away. And you Google an address or Amelia Island, and you got a high viewed video, it's probably going to pop up.
Yeah.
High in the feed, because a lot of other people liked it. They're like, oh, you're probably going to like this. And it might be the silliest video, and they may not even be interested in that type of house or whatever it is, but they're meeting you.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people underestimate, because that's the out of box. A lot of people think it more directly and say, oh, well, yeah, your daughter walked to the house, but did you sell that house? You know, did that video help you, sell the house? Well, we don't know.
Right.
And I don't think you ever know. I mean, I think people underestimate social media, and they're like, are you getting, direct leads? And if you comment on it, because you mentioned earlier, you've gotten these feeds. It takes some time. It's not a, hey, let's shoot a video and then wait, the phone's going to ring like an 800 commercial, in the middle of the NBA Finals tonight.
Right.
But, that rocket might be running. I mean, when I was at Quicken Loans, we knew we had TVs up when the 800 ad ran, because everyone was refining at the time. The phone, you would get those 800 calls, and typically those are hot, right? It's like the Zillow, right? Boom, they're a hot lead. But social media is a long-term play. But that video, how old is it now? Is still being seen.
Right. Yeah. 2.5 years old. And like I said, we had another video just a little over 2 years ago, and somebody texted me 2 days ago and said, hey, just saw this video. I'm interested and would love more info. But I mean, the phone didn't ring day one.
And that house has long been sold and owned by someone else.
Yep.
But they saw it and saw you guys.
And then other neighbors have seen that, and we've sold more in that neighborhood since. And we didn't repeat that video, but that's what saw them, because they they thought, oh, that's a interesting way to show off our community. And
with your marketing background, and I never studied marketing. I think I come up with visions like you do and different ideas. It's doing, which really it was crazy because it's out of the box. You would call, hey, that's a crazy video, but it wasn't like
crazy.
something. Oh yeah,
Right, yeah.
someone skydiving
Right.
or something like that.
Don't tempt him.
Anyone could shot that video, right?
Correct,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe not as good as you did, but they could shoot something similar and get a laugh out of it. But I think I want to go back. What I want. Going off my thing, and I lost what I wanted to ask you directly. It'll come back to me. But they're underestimating the, like I said, that YouTube video. The one you have, is this the one that has the 21,000 views, or is that another one?
That was the video that I got the 21,000 views. That's the one I got a text from the other day. But that was a driving tour of the historic downtown Ferndale
Right,
Beach.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That they have life to it, and you have to put yourself in the video, because I think would you agree, in this day and age of social media, people say we're not interacting as much with people and so forth like that, that you have to put yourself in the video, because now that's the interaction
Right.
in the business that we're in.
Yeah, and I've had people even want to, they reached out through text and said, "Hey, I saw your video. Could we FaceTime later today?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we can FaceTime." And I FaceTime, and they're like, "Oh, it's really you." Like,
Yeah, and they're excited about
like
that.
I'm Mr. Beast,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We think back. I remember. We've run into different celebrities that are on TV. I'm trying to remember was a longtime newscaster. It wasn't Walter Cronkite, but one of those guys. And I ran into him in D.C. one time. I was living outside D.C. at the time, and they're celebrity, right? They're on television all the time. Well, YouTube is becoming television to a lot of people, because that's what YouTube wants to be.
Yeah.
They want to be television to a lot of people, and you are, because you're on YouTube. You some sort of rise to some celebrity status.
Yeah, and we've had people, and it's not always the best, when you hear this, but they're like, "Oh, hey, we know you. You're a realtor, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Your videos were the reason why we moved here." I'm like, "Well, I wish you would have called me," but but still, like, we feel good that it's getting out there, and and maybe when they decide to sell, like they'll think
Be
of
top
us.
of mind. Yeah.
I think we talked about a pre-show, and because I comb through everyone's social media before the show, get some information on you to create my questions, that sort of thing. And if I went through, if I graded everyone's, like I said, of 204 episodes, roughly 190 of them are agents. And if I went through those 190, you guys would probably if you would be in the top 5 easily. That means there's 185 of these top agents that are actually doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But their YouTube sucks.
Oh yeah.
And they're not doing anything yet. A lot of them are doing the Instagram.
Yeah.
In this day and age, like you just mentioned, these people are moving from out of state, but even your neighbors are seeing this stuff.
Right.
And we know, not all of us know our neighbors very well.
Right.
I always thought it was funny when I lived up north. The only time you really saw your neighbors when you're out shoveling the snow, right? Because they're all,
True.
Yeah.
We're all in it together.
Yeah, you're all busy. Everyone's doing it. But now they're seeing you on so these people from out of state, they are Googling. They are looking for video. And especially video of, they may have gone on vacation there, but you don't see everything, right? You only saw the road that you went down. You don't know what's behind. So you have let me see these other videos. Let me see if I start putting this piece together of what Amelia Island looks like. Right, with this video. I mean, in your marketing group, how many people, I don't know if there's a percentage or what's the statistics on these people that are moving from Chicago, New York, and so forth, that are Googling and going on YouTube looking for videos for the area that they think they want to live.
Yeah, and we have a Del Webb video, and it has over 7,000 for the Wild Light. And I mean, these people are 85 years old, and they're like, "Hey, we found your video on YouTube." And now, even if you type in Del Webb Wild Light in the Google Images, like, that video's right at the top. And and I think if we would have just done an Instagram reel or a Facebook post, and some of these videos, like we said, are 2 years old, and we're still getting, if that was 2 years old on Instagram, you'd never scroll down far
2
enough
weeks
to find it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone's posting enough, but then who goes on? Well, that's the thing with TikTok. People say people search for things on TikTok. I'm like, I just go and, it feeds me just like Instagram, what I like to see or what I stop on or like or whatever. It's buried very quickly. Facebook, it's buried very quickly.
Right.
If it doesn't, it might recycle if someone goes and sees it because it's on someone else's page and someone's not. But if someone's regularly doing content, it quickly gets buried on their page.
Right.
Type of thing. The only thing to me that's there all the time is YouTube.
Yeah.
And Google.
And now it's the second biggest search platform,
Right.
you know, after Google. You know, even when I was flipping houses, I was like, oh, how do I change out toilets, and, you know, YouTube. And so like I started to realize, like, man, everything I want to learn is, you know, I'm learning through YouTube. And so, yeah, I had said, you know, at first I just started, like, I'm just going to keep the videos on YouTube, and didn't really look at that as a social media platform. But, you know, in case Facebook ever goes down, and then I, you know, went back, I was like, wow, they're actually getting views on YouTube, and I haven't really been
anything.
pushing that at all. It was just kind of a place to hold them online.
Well, I noticed on my page, like, if I go on my homepage, and it used to just really just like, you know, as I adding each podcast, right? And it's adding, but now I'm seeing, like, hold on a second, why is this video on my kind of like dashboard? It's because people just watched it. It's showing me actually what videos were just recently watched, whether it's a reel or a full video. And so, you know, I've been doing on Instagram recently, you know, kind of like what you guys did the other day, where I posted on my story, hey, and you guys are coming on. Well, people that have been on it, like, oh, they were on episode so and so, and it just keeps recycling. And people keep popping it up. You mentioned going on those listing appointments, and you mentioned views. So I'm gonna put this together. And how do you go on listing appointments together? You go as a team? Is that kind of
sometimes?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the customer.
Yeah. How do you pitch them or explain to them, because they may not have gotten you know, from the YouTube. If they get the YouTube video, they understand when you say it.
Yeah.
But how do you show them, hey, we're going to expose this? Because I think a lot of agents have underestimated, because the last few years were easy. You know, 2021, put a sign in the yard, it was sold. You didn't have to expose it to a lot of people. People were already looking hard for it. Right? Type of thing. But as the markets change and start to normalize, you know, you need exposure. How do you explain to them that you're going to add this exposure with some of your marketing expertise, as your wife brags about you?
Yeah. So yeah, I, for one, I didn't really like how crazy it got, because, you know, I like being creative, and I, you know, hated the thought of, like, this is going to sell before I can even edit the video. And, you know, and you're seeing people like, that's a $2 million house, and, you know, their hands outside of the shower curtain taking pictures, and, you know, and it sells, and they're like, oh, I did my job, got it full price. I'm like, yeah, but you may have gotten, you know, a couple $100,000 more if you would have marketed it better. But we have a listing presentation. We bind it in a hard book. We put, you know, all of the YouTube info in there, kind of show the engagement we're getting, the views that we're getting. And you know, sometimes too, we'll bring an iPad and show them if we don't think that they're familiar with that, kind of some of the videos that we can do. And yeah, some we can be, you know,
a little more traditional.
Yeah, a little more traditional, and, you know, kind of do a traditional walkthrough of the house. And then, you know, others we did a fun one, you know, for a condo on the beach. I was like, it's a small condo, but let's kind of make fun with it. And, you know, had, you know, grab your swimsuits and your sunscreen, because it's fully furnished and that's all you need. And so yeah, we're kind of creative, you know, if we feel like they can.
It's based on what they're comfortable with, which that initial meeting lets us kind of show them, like, hey, we can go, you know, this lane, or we can push it and come a little more creative.
Would you, as a woman, you know, when I was in retail, for example, and one of the jobs I had was in telecommunications, cell phones. Yeah. And you'd see some of these stores, they would put all the stuff over their windows they can't see inside. Not that they deliberately were hiding something that was inside, but they felt that they had to fill the windows with all these advertisements. But as a woman, you kind of want to know what's going on behind that wall, so to speak. And these videos, like you said, putting on the sunscreen and how close you are. Look how quickly, and you know maybe your daughter runs out or whatever. You run out there, and so people could start to judge distance. They start, they can they not start to visualize themselves actually being there?
Right. And a lot of times they say to us, "Oh, I could finally feel the flow of the house." It just took it a step further than professional pictures and they can study those pictures later, trying to imagine, their furniture there and their stuff there, but it lets them see how they would use the home, and how the movement works.
Yeah, and I think each home has a story, and and how they're gonna live in the house. And if you don't kind of portray that in the video, some it's just like, okay, it's just like a PowerPoint presentation, but if you can show a potential buyer, or even, and a lot of times, I say we're marketing a lot towards agents, because agents have thousands of buyers a piece.
Right.
And we're connected with a lot of real estate agents. So if we can promote that, a lot of times they're like, hey, that reminded me, I have a perfect client that they wanted this, that opened up to the backyard, to the pool, to the pond. And
right. Because the pictures and even the virtual tours really just don't, and people don't add music to it and stuff like that.
Right.
Sometimes that rises emotions, right?
Yeah,
it makes you feel something when you see it.
The virtual, just like, I think you hit it on. And the other point, hopefully our listeners are making, and if hopefully they reach out to you and kind of get some ideas. But it's not rocket science. You got to get started with the video. Is again going back to YouTube. Someone is still looking at that video 3 years later, and it's not because they're looking at that particular house. Or I think every agent should have videos on their area that they want to specialize in, Amelia Island, Fernandina Beach, or St. Augustine, whatever it is. You got to have videos on there, because it's the only way those customers are going to be led to your page,
right,
to kind of then get, well, what's beyond the house,
right.
I'm thinking of one recently. An agent close to me was right. The house is literally in a golf course community. Lucky it's a popular community, so it's already under sale. But the driving range is literally walk out. There's some bushes, some trees, and so forth. But you can walk out, and there's a putting green in the driving range, like it's your backyard.
Oh yeah.
So if you're inactive, or the tennis courts are that much closer together, to actually shoot the video of you walking with your tennis racket, or with a couple of golf clubs, to go walk out and go hit some balls. You actually have to show some of these people this directly.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And even some of the videos too, we have a lot of lifestyle videos. Kind of feel like, this is, Amelia Island's more and more on the map, but a lot of people don't know what Amelia Island is, and you don't get as much, the price per square foot is a lot less on Amelia Island than other parts of Jacksonville. So, people are coming from Atlanta and like, I want a 6,500 square foot house for, 600,000. I'm like, okay, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. And so if we can kind of show them,
you want it to have walls and windows,
right?
And
Yes. So we can kind of show them like, okay, what do you, why do you want this? What do you want to do? And they're like, well, I like to golf, and I'm like, let's go. So we'll be, let's go visit some of the local golf clubs while they're here, instead of just looking at houses. Because if we can show them, the area and and a big reason for that downtown video was, we were always driving people through the downtown, because that's such a big part of Amelia Island. Yeah. And that's why we fell in love with it. It's not just, a beach town with surf shops, like the big pop-up, t-shirt everywhere, like in Daytona. Yeah. And so we're like, this is what made us fall in love with Amelia Island. So every driving tour, like, hey, before we look at houses, I just want to show you this historic downtown area and these great spots to eat. And then they'd be like, you know what? We actually don't need that big of a house, and we'd rather be closer to this area. Yeah. Or, hey, this is close to that golf club, and that's a really nice, meet the golf pro, and yeah, he seemed like a really great guy, and I'd love to get lessons from him. And so if we can kind of show them, this is how you'll live. A lot of times, the square footage and some of the things that they would want in their dream home, that doesn't matter as much anymore.
Right. No, I totally agree. So let's get back to the dynamics. Let's drill down in here. So you said you don't all go on listing appointments together. It depends on the client.
Yep.
Give me an example. What's a client that maybe you like? No, I got this one. You're gonna tell Jordan, I've got this one.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes if it's like a woman that wants to work directly with a woman, that would be me. A husband and wife. A lot
Does
of times.
she tell you that, or that's just a feeling?
No, it's just reading it. We're just trying to read the room. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's the two of us, and sometimes it's just him. It just really depends on the person, and are they beforehand communicating with both of us? Are they only texting me and calling me? Are they only texting and calling Jordan? People kind of show you what they want if you'll listen. So I think we just try to read the person the best we can.
So, and I'm asking this question because obviously I've had different teams on there, whether it was, two women together, or I had, not that the anchor, no, it wasn't anchor, Erica and his Florida's Choice Realty, her and her mom, but they kind of Gainesville in here, so they have distance between each other, so they're not going on appointments together. But what roles they play, right? Sometimes both of you seem to be, you are forward facing. In other words, you are meeting the clients that you feel you'll connect with better, whether Jordan goes or you go. You both do that. You both are handling some back office stuff, but you're leveraging the transaction coordinators that Engel and Volkers is providing you to handle a lot of that back end. It's so, if I'm describing it correctly, both of you are forward facing. He's taking on a lot of the marketing type stuff.
Yeah.
What are you taking some part of this? Besides just having that great smile that you have.
I feel like Jordan does like most of our heavy lifting, and that's what's working in our season right now. I'm like, are you still good? Are you good?
He videos you.
Yeah. So I just,
and I did want her to be on the team, so I could, I'm like, you're prettier than me, and I want to put you in a lot of the videos.
She was the host of
exactly.
the show.
Yes.
So, no, my role really is supporting him. Like he's the engine, and I'm happy with that in this season. So, when we divide out, a lot of times is that he spreads so thin. So I'm gonna go to those places that he can't be the face there today. So it's like, you know what? Them talking to me feels as an extension for them.
Right.
So especially with him starting our business first, he's the main point of contact. People want to talk to Jordan. They want to meet with Jordan. I think I'm a bonus.
But we have had, friends of ours and husband and wife that, a lot of times the wife will kind of start the process of, looking for a new home. And I think they don't feel comfortable. The wife doesn't feel comfortable reaching out to me.
And that surprised us.
Feels very comfortable reaching out to her.
I think it's kind of like the mother, who do you go to ask if you want to get kids, right? They're going to go to one of you.
Right.
Who do you think they're going to get the...
So it can be casual with me. We'll grab coffee. We'll grab lunch. We'll, go for a beach walk. And I'm like, hey, we've got this person. They need a, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Let's go. And then we do follow-ups, from there.
When you, if you bring someone new you've never met before, type of thing, whether they come off a video or somewhere for just, you don't know these people, do you generally give them both contact information so they know there's two of you working on it? Because different groups and teams kind of feel that, and then see where they go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say a lot of times
it's
just me, kind of having all those initial conversations and the initial showings, and they know that we're a husband and wife team. But I usually have a lot of those conversations at the beginning, especially.
Have you ever had to, go on out to a listing appointment? I think the listing appointment's more you're obviously trying to earn the business.
Yeah.
The buyer representation is a little different dynamic. You're going out there to earn the business, where you had to bring in the other to close the listing.
I don't think we've run into that yet.
You
I
kind
could
of like
see
the
that
sales manager
happening,
turnover,
though.
right? You're out there,
Yeah.
you can't, just for some reason they're not saying no, but
Right.
they're not saying yes yet
Right.
either.
When I was with
what do I need to do to kick them in?
yeah, when I was with the team, when I first started, I had that happen and was like, you know, this lady I was working with was just kind of roller coaster, and you know, like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for finding me this house. Like, I'm so excited to make an offer, and then was like, why do you think this house will work for me? Are you crazy? And I was like, I think she needs a woman, and you know, and I passed it to the other person on the team.
Right.
We haven't really run into that yet with our team here, but.
So it sounds like you guys are more trying to think of the book the late Sarah Rocco gave me to read, Rocket Fuel. You have the visionary, and then you have an integrator, and that's generally how some of the greatest businessmen is that person who comes up with those marketing ideas, but then you have to have someone actually do it.
Right.
You know, it sounds like you guys have a lot similarities. Where he may be on the outer edge of visionary,
Right.
but you think a lot alike and can almost complete each other's sentences.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
I saw some Frozen in that Disney movie. I was gonna say complete
Each other's sandwiches. That's what I was gonna say.
We have
three girls. So.
Yeah.
Let's reach out. What are you seeing right now? Because I think I'm asking this question for the I think Nassau County is just I live in St. Johns County, and they're just whatever amount of years behind in the cycle, but it's a treasure. Northeast Florida is kind of the last. Well, there's still a lot of places in Florida, but as far as being around a large city, Tampa,
right,
right,
Miami, Orlando, Naples is, not that Naples and Fort Myers are huge cities, but that place blew up. Having lived there 20 years ago myself, Northeast Florida has all these treasures in the water. We're boating and so forth, and obviously the kids' activities we talked about earlier. But what are you seeing right now? What kind of buyers are you seeing coming into the market? I know Airbnb is big. Are you finding families? What's going on in that area right now that you're seeing?
I mean, a lot of different things. I mean, a lot of people are. I just feel like right now, a lot of people just want to live in Florida. And a lot of it is taxes. Some of it's weather, but some of them don't want. They don't want the South Florida. They want to be as far north as they can.
There's people moving up from South Florida.
Right.
There are, that move to South Florida, and then we're like, okay, this, this is like New York City again down here, and like, kind of what they say about Florida, like the further north you go, the further south you go. It is a very like southern type of
South Georgia.
And we can't go anywhere without, she's like, I thought you were just going to Publix for one thing. You were there for, hour and a half. I'm like, oh, I ran into so many people.
But it's the relationships again. Like you can't go out without, you're saying hi to
Yeah. So
everybody.
even though like, there's a lot of tourism, it's a lot of people that just really want that hometown feel, and we have that, and so I don't know if there's like a a certain demographic that we're seeing more of. We're seeing families. It's an A-rated school district up there. We're seeing retirement. We're seeing people that
investments, a lot of short-term vacation rentals.
And people that are like, I wanted to retire when I was 75 in Florida, but I don't want to wait that long anymore, and I want to move there now. And
I think COVID.
Launched
that.
Yep. And whether it's like, my job allows me to work from anywhere now, or they had that for a little bit and had to go back, and we're like, I want to find another job where I can work from anywhere, and if that, if it's anywhere, then I want it to be Florida.
Are you seeing, because obviously Jacksonville's been very good at bringing in especially a lot of financial, we've become a financial hub. People are making the commute.
Yes.
Down there. That's not, of course, obviously if you're in New York City, a lot of these people got on trains for an hour at a time.
Right.
To go into work. So a half hour, 45-minute ride, depending on how far they're, up in there to come into Jacksonville to go to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the airport is a big part, especially of Nassau County, with the airport being on the north side of Jacksonville. We're seeing a lot of people are like, I don't have to travel a ton, but for the once or twice a month that I do, like I'd rather have it an easier commute to the airport.
Right.
And so we've seen a lot of that recently too.
You mentioned the Airbnb, or we,
Yes.
St. Augustine, especially St. Augustine Beach, has a restriction on how many, Airbnbs, they have to have a little whatever permit or whatever. Have we gotten any of that up in Amelia on the beach area?
We have zoning.
Yeah, so I think it was like 2012 they started kind of cracking down, and maybe it had to do with the Ritz and the Omni and some of the bigger hotels not wanting every house up and down the beach to be a vacation rental. So some have been grandfathered in since then, but now they have to have a certain type of zoning if it's a house, and then about half of the island is in the town, and those have the zoning restrictions. The rest is in the county,
right?
And those don't have restrictions, but if it's in an HOA, then a lot of times that's impossible too. But we have quite a few. I mean, I'd probably say half of the condos on Amelia Island are vacation rentals. And we for a little over a year, we managed about 60 vacation rental condos. And so we've been able to really help people too. Like, hey, this building is not a great investment. And, they're always going through assessments and, and even
their board likes to get into lawsuits.
Right. Yeah.
That's been a great resource for us, because we can tell people, like, this building makes a lot more money than this does. Or if you make this adjustment, if you purchase this condo, it needs to sleep this, and walk them through how to, gain the most financially they possibly can from their investment.
Right.
I think that's been a unique niche for us too.
Well, I think it's especially from St. Augustine. My wife and I own some condos on there. That was an important thing you said there. A lot of the condos allow short-term rentals because many don't.
Right.
And when you're looking, hey, I want to invest in Airbnb. Well, you need to get with a real estate agent that knows how this works, because I guarantee you there's inexperienced agents down there in St. Augustine Beach that are showing places knowing they're not going to get one of those 100 permits or whatever it is.
Right. And there are when we would manage rentals, we'd have people come to us, hey, could you manage our vacation rental? I'm like, sorry, it's a 30-day minimum. Like, you're not going to, we can maybe book it for a few months here and there, but you're not going to have that return on investment that you thought. My real estate agent told me that, or if they went straight to the listing agent, like the listing agent told me, I'm like, I think they just wanted the sale.
They use the phrase short-term rental,
right?
Not like
like how short?
Right. Is it daily?
And so, and so it's been a little while since we've done that, but we're still connected with a lot of the management companies that do, and we'll go to them and say, hey, could you, like, I noticed these units are similar. Can you send me how much money they made? And then we can look at that too and be like, okay, they actually had an owner block for, the whole month of July. That's a killer month, to like take out yourself. Like if you rent it for, we can kind of give them an idea of how much money they're going to make throughout the process too.
No, I think, if anything, agents need to be up on the condos. I mean, there's money in those.
Yeah.
Now they're having some, obviously the challenges. I mean, my wife and I own, I don't know, 6 or 7. She may have bought another one. I don't know. She has done that.
She's my partner.
I'm like, if you think it'll work, if you think the rent's there. But being with agents and like I said, know what that they're going to rent for.
Yeah.
And be able to explain. No, is it short term? What does short term mean?
Right.
Now, we've been lucky enough because of all the new construction, where our condos, we're not on the beach, we're back in the King and Bear, but because with all the new construction, you do have people that need it for 4, 5, 6 months, 8 months because their house is being built.
Right.
So versus having to do a yearly lease, you can be picky and get people to come in there months at a time.
And they'll pay a little more.
They'll pay a little bit more.
Yeah.
Everything's included, utilities and everything, and it's a win-win situation. And because I think the biggest thing with people with Airbnbs is you probably experienced the logistics of cleaning them and so forth after everyone moves out. Some people have standards in cleaning, some people don't.
Yeah.
We're very particular. My wife wants everything spick and span. She'll go in after the cleaner sometimes and clean.
Yeah.
And that's but it goes back to your reputation and quality of what your product you're putting out.
Right.
Because Airbnb, you guys have probably seen, these people want these unique little experiences in these places. Now that's the ones that are getting them. Like I said, do you go and renovate one of those condos? Right. Because this guy down the hallway, he renovated his. He's booked all the time.
Right.
You're not renovated.
Let's
People are
look
choosing
at
his.
why.
Yeah.
Right.
They're choosing his over yours.
And and now we can show them the numbers too. Like, okay, so this one has an updated kitchen, and this one that this management company doesn't. And so if you put that $20,000 into these things, like, or whatever it may be, like, you'll get that return within the first year.
Yeah.
And because some people are like, I just need it to start making money right away, and maybe in 2 years I'll come back and look, and I'm like, I can actually show you that you'll make more money if you can put that money into it now.
Well, right now with the interest rates as high as they are, would you? And we'll just focus on the areas that you're talking about in the Fernandina, Amelia Island area. If someone was looking at an investment property and was like, we're not going to cash flow on it, they're not going to lose much or anything. Maybe this is a break even. Would you suggest to still move forward with it?
Yeah, it just depends. We've had a lot of kind of cash buyers coming in and taking advantage that people are kind of sitting back waiting on interest rates to go down. And I think it really would just come down to the numbers. And I do think there's some condos right now that are that they've sold for way higher than they should. And so sometimes we've kind of turned them to like, hey, for the same price, like this actually is a little lower than it should. And we definitely don't want anybody to ever get in financial trouble too. So I think it's kind of asking, like, long term, what are your goals? Yeah, what are your goals?
Well, I mean, I personally, if someone needs the cash flow out of a property to live, I think they're already making a mistake.
Right. Yeah. And some people are looking at it like, hey, I need to, like, my accountant says I need to buy this place, or a 1031 exchange, like, hey, we sold a property here, we need to buy something here, and and a lot of times they've been looking at Florida too, because the states they're coming from, California or Washington State, like, the squatters' rights are, it's driving them crazy, and they're trying to get their rental properties out of those states and into Florida.
And they see the benefit of investing in property, so they just want to exchange it.
Well, I mean, just seeing, I mean, in St. Johns County is nowhere near as built out. I mean, then if we were to jump forward 10 years, and Nassau County is just that few years behind it, still the top rated schools. And if you want acreage, you could still go out to the go to the western part and buy acreage out there. To me, if there was a good investment property that was a break even on, I know, unless I wanted to turn it and sell it in a year or two, I know in 5 and 10 years, I'm going to get my money back and then some out of that property, and let someone else pay the mortgage on it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I think it's like trying to find those goals of the client. Like, what's your long-term goal with this?
All right, total change subject. We'll finish up, and then I'll, if you guys have anything you want to add, maybe we didn't talk about. I had Gia Arvin, the president of Florida Realtors, on Tuesday on the show. We were talking about NAR and so forth. What is Corey sharing with you guys? And then what is your personal opinion? I mean, is it really changing your business than what you've already been doing?
I say Corey's really good at making sure that we're coming together corporately of all of our offices and making sure we're all aware of all the changes and what's happening. He is really good at almost over-educating. Like, you're going to have all the resources, all the information, all the tools, like, so that we can be full speed ahead. So in our brokerage, we're fortunate to not, feel blindsided by any means.
Right, yeah. And I'm actually, I mean, like, in a weird way, looking forward to a lot of the changes. I think it's going to, people are going to search out for the true professionals and not just, hey, I called this random, number on a Zillow or Trulia, and now I'm meeting some stranger at a house. I think, they're going to they are going to start finding you through social media and wanting to work with people that they connect with, not just the first person that meets me at this house may get the deal.
They're going to start Googling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you've got the video and the social media backing already created.
Right. Yeah.
I like
because they do that now for listings, but I think they're going to start doing that for buyers.
Right.
And, and I think too, like being able to negotiate your own commission, because sometimes you're like, you'll see like, oh, the listing agent really didn't negotiate much commission. So you kind of do have that on your own. And in Georgia, I think it may change. Like in Georgia right now, a lot of times the buyers need contributions for closing because they're military, they're VA. So a lot of times, it's a $400,000 house. We're going to offer full price and we want 3% in closing costs. And I just think that that's probably going to be more of a norm for everywhere. I think the buyers are going to start just asking.
Because have you seen a low appraisal recently?
No.
Because that's and there's been just this week the dealing actually was very interesting that two different real estate agents called me on the same property. It was in St. Johns County. It is a manufactured home, but it's actually on the east side of 95 in the World Golf Village area. I don't know where this little treasure was found, and it's sub $300,000. So I'm like, holy cow! Everybody and their mom is it's going to be calling on this little treasure here. But the buyers obviously they can afford your workforce housing. We're starting these programs here. The bank's got a $10,000 grant. I mean, through the federal home loan bank programs and stuff. That needing the seller concessions is vital for anyone in those areas, because even if they do have money, it's not a lot. And then if they have to pay off a debt to ultimately get qualified, or even just put themselves in a better spot, they're better off paying the debt and taking a little bit more mortgage on, because even at 7%, it's still better than that credit card, type thing. And to ask a little bit more, my recommendation says it's in St. Johns County at that price point. Ask for give them a $10,000 more, but ask them to cut it back as a seller concession, because if you're not asking full boat, someone is, because you ain't finding that.
Yeah.
There. Anything you guys like to add? Anything we didn't talk about that?
I don't think so.
This has been going. I appreciate coming on. I think you guys ought to start your own, even if you just do it like once every couple of weeks. You ought to start your own little Amelia Island podcast. I really think because I'm looking at the two. She has this Regis and Kathy Lee. She's Kathy Lee.
Yes.
Kathy Lee likes to have a good time.
Invite the business owners on, whatever, these type of people on the show to come on. Like I said, even if you guys just did one, it would create another avenue of content.
Yeah, true.
Talking about Amelia Island, talking about Fernandina Beach, talking about whatever it is, type of thing. But I think,
you heard the idea here first.
That's right. You heard the idea here first. But I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This is great.
Thank you.